Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. And on this edition, we have a very special guest with us here on the State of the Saints podcast. He was here a few months ago talking to us about Saints football, and he's back again. He really doesn't need an introduction because he's the voice of the New Orleans Saints. I'm talking about Mr. Mike Hoss. Mike, how you doing?
I'm great, man. You picked good timing, right? If you're gonna do the State of the Saints podcast, I'd do it after that Raider game.
Yeah,
and not the Arizona game, and not the Cincinnati game, but after the Raider game. So perfect timing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was something that we all needed to see as Saints fans and supporters of this team. You know, pitching a shutout against the Las Vegas Raiders. So I'm really excited about that. And we're also really excited to have you on the show. Thank you so much. We know you're extremely busy. So thank you so much, Mike, for your time.
No problem, man. Look forward to it. And, you know, I'd love to go around the world now. And you see Saints fans in South Carolina and everywhere we go, there's always a big contingent of Who-Dats. And so, you know, it's always good to talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely. But got to talk to you about, you know, New Orleans Saints. We're midway through the season. And as you look at the state of the NFC South, it seems like nobody wants to win this division, which plays into the hands of the New Orleans Saints pitching a shutout. And this could possibly be the start of them actually, you know, going on a little bit of a run here. The next game is against the Baltimore Ravens on Monday Night Football. But let's go back to that game versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Mike, how shocked were you that the Saints finally were able to put everything together? I mean, we know what this team was, looking at this team in the all season and being excited about what they were going to be able to bring to the table, and finally they put it all together. What are your thoughts about the team after they pitched the shutout versus the Raiders?
Well, offensively, to me, it wasn't like the big shock offensively because they had been moving the ball. Alvin had been running well, had been receiving well. All of that had kind of been happening, but they weren't scoring touchdowns. Right. They weren't getting it in, and they were turning the ball over. So, but other than the turnovers and the penalties and everything else, they were moving the ball. But who cares about that? I don't care about total yards. I care about points, right? So the offense didn't surprise me because the only change there was, man, Alvin was like, he was a man possessed, man. He was, you know, you weren't keeping it out of the end zone.
Right.
And so the offense was kind of there. But to me, the biggest surprise was the defense. And it was only a surprise in that we had not seen it that at that level. We'd seen parts of Sacks and Cam on the outside, but I thought about the interior defensive line, linebackers, secondary played phenomenal. Getting Paulson and Debo back was instrumental. So that was the surprising part, just the level of change from Arizona, Minnesota, Cincinnati, Seattle, where they're just giving up huge chunks. I mean, they give up a lot of yards in those games, and then all of a sudden they give up basically nothing or
Right.
it was 183 yards, I think total. 64 came on the that last drive with Jared Stidman in.
Yeah.
So if you take those out, they had 119 total yards for the game. It's just it was so unbelievable. We talked about it during the game. But we
Mhm.
kept going like, is this going to continue? This is insane. From
Yeah.
that first series, but Derek Carr was just like, they were coming from everywhere. And
Yeah.
it just continued for the entire game. So that was very impressive. And they
Yeah.
need it to happen again. Can't just be one and done. We've seen it too many times. We thought after the the Seattle game, that okay, they've turned the corner a little bit and
Mm.
played well against Cincinnati. Did a lot of things right, but didn't come up with a win. Need to
Yeah.
put back to back together.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was something that we needed to see, and it's something that they needed to do. And
Right.
you got to give a lot of credit, Mike, to Alvin Kamara, who spoke up after that loss versus the Arizona Cardinals. And he put, he made himself accountable. He wanted other players to hold themselves accountable, and it seemed like it worked. Because it was a different New Orleans Saints team. And it seemed like a couple of weeks before, it seemed like guys were kind of like worrying about making a mistake. But this game, it seemed like guys were playing free, and it seemed like they were having fun out there. And that's something that the Saints need to be able to do going forward. But I want to talk to you about Alvin Kamara. He scored 3 touchdowns in this past game, but he went a couple of weeks without even scoring a touchdown. And it seems like the offense was moving, but it wasn't the classic vintage Alvin Kamara that we were used to. They decide to go with Andy Dalton as the starting quarterback. My question is to you, do you think Andy Dalton, the decision to go with him, had a lot to do with what we seen this past Sunday versus the Raiders and how he can get the ball to Alvin Kamara?
Well, Alvin hadn't scored a touchdown all season. So he had played, got yardage, got reception, did all that, but he had not scored. And I was like, man, I even looked it up. Like, has he been through a stretch where he's had, 7 games without a touchdown? And he has, but it's rare,
Right.
receiving or rushing.
Right.
So I do think it played a role. I think that the decision to go with Dalton was about who gives us the best chance to win. And Andy's proven, he didn't get sacked in Arizona, only been sacked twice, had the turnovers, of course, the fumble in Minnesota, the picks in Arizona were decimating. But I still feel that for whatever reason, he sees Alvin better. He's able to find Alvin more as a receiver and as a runner. But the rest of it's on Alvin. Alvin was just, you follow his lead, and he was determined this week, and determined always, but just more so. So I do think it played a role, just because I feel like, receivers and quarterbacks have, and I look at Alvin kind of as a receiver, really, have connections that are stronger than others. And
Right.
Jameis and Alvin had connected some, but not a lot. Even his targets were down considerably at the start of 21 and at the start of 22. So I do think it played a role. But man, it's getting Alvin the ball in some space is let him do the rest, and he did, and it was a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, if the Saints are going to get anywhere, they're going to have to get the ball into the hands of their best offensive weapon, which is Alvin Kamara, especially since you've been dealing with injuries throughout the NFL season with Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry. I mean, he's such a dynamic player, and it seems like he and Andy Dalton are on the same page. It was a couple of passes. I mean, Andy Dalton found them, and he turned those into points, and that's exactly what you want. Looking at the state of the NFC South, looking at the Carolina Panthers, Atlanta Falcons, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, do you feel like the New Orleans Saints have a real legitimate, true chance to actually win this division? And if so, what are the things they need to do in order to separate themselves from the pack?
I think very much they have a chance to win the division. I'm not sure, I think we saw this past week how painful it is to be a Carolina Panther fan. God bless them all. I mean, it was, we're all of us. I mean, everybody in New Orleans was rooting for Carolina. I'm like, just go, wow, it must be tough to be a Panther fan, baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, they very much. I think the next 3 games will tell us a lot, really, because they're 2 of the 3 are home. 2 of the 3 are actually AFC, but the Saints just need to put a string together. You can't win 1, lose 2, win 1, lose 2. The NFC South and you'll be that bad, I don't think. And again, there's 3 more games against them. The Saints, and 2 of those 3. Carolina, and the Falcons will be here. The Saints play in Tampa. So
Right.
you can't let Atlanta. You can't let Atlanta get too. Because I feel like Atlanta is a pretty good team. I
Yeah.
mean, the Saints beat them in that first week, but it took a magical miracle fourth quarter to do so. But yeah, I think that they're very much in this division, but they got to string some wins together. They can't just and they just do what you did last week. Now you're not going to shut out everybody,
Yeah.
but offensively, you just do what you do. Don't turn it over. They only had 5 penalties. They controlled the clock, which they've been doing. But when they control the clock, they punched it in. And then if defense plays half as good as that against Baltimore, because Baltimore should be 8-0. I mean, they
Mhm.
really should. I mean, their 3 losses came after fourth quarter collapses. And so
Yeah.
they're 5-3, but they could easily be 8-0.
Yeah.
Read option. I mean, Lamar Jackson brings a lot to the table. The Saints have not fared well against that. But
Right.
if you can stop it early, it'll change things, because if you can stop that read option to force them to throw, that's their weakness.
Yeah.
So we'll say it's a big one.
Yeah. But I mean, if they're going to be able to stop and neutralize Lamar Jackson, it's going to have to start on the defensive line. And we've seen these guys come alive last week. We've seen Peyton Turner. He had 2 sacks. Davenport should have had a sack, but it was negated by a holding call.
Penalty, yep.
I mean, and you also had Cam Jordan and Kendavius Street with half of a sack. So the front four seems like they're starting to come together. What is your overall opinion of this defensive line? Do you feel like, looking at these guys and what they did last week, can they build on that? And how impressed were you looking at Peyton Turner finally, show what show what he's capable of doing?
It was great to see Peyton out there. He's missed 4 games this year. He missed a ton in 21, so that was his rookie year. So to see him come out, because we really haven't seen a lot of him. I mean, we really haven't. We don't know. Right. I mean, he had a sack in his first game with Green Bay, in 21, and then, pretty much injured. So it was great to see that. Don't really yet, we don't. Again, it's almost like same as offense. Can they string it together? To me, what the interior defensive line did this past week was extraordinary, because I didn't see it coming. Quite frankly, the interior defensive line in the Cincinnati game and pretty much the Arizona game were non-existent. They had no stats in the Cincinnati game and not a whole lot in the Arizona game. So to see David Onyemata, who was actually sick last Friday, he went on the injury list on the Friday before the game. I was like, we had flu going around everywhere. But to see Onyemata, Kendavius Street, and those guys, Davenport and Peyton Turner, what happens is it just makes Cam that much better. Where they don't, all you got to worry about is Cam. You can neutralize Cam, but when you got to worry about the middle, and if you can get pressure on any quarterback with your front four, and which the Saints did from the very first series, if you can do that, man, it's the pendulum swings so far to your side. So they've got to keep it up, because we've watched 2 games prior to this Raider game, Cincinnati and Arizona, where they were not a factor. And believe me, the quarterbacks did what they wanted to do.
Yeah. I mean, that defensive line they were hunting last week. And a lot of the sacks that they had was due to coverage. And, you have to look at Paulson Adebo and the rookie, Alante Taylor, who has been really impressive. I mean, just think about this, Mike. Like, you get your first start, and the first started against arguably the best wide receiver in football in DeAndre Hopkins. And they're like, oh, okay, Rook, now you got to go back this week and go up against Devontae Adams. But it seems like he doesn't flinch. It seems like he belongs in the moment. Watching him in real time, Mike, how impressed have you been with Alante Taylor?
Very, kind of like Chris Olave, but you don't they're a little different. Certainly Olave is very quiet, just goes about his business, just doing everything. But I felt like Alante, with the game with Arizona, you could just see that he was playing off, right? They were playing probably 10 yards off of DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins could have caught 20 passes if he wanted to, just 8 down and out. So just keep doing it. But that was, Taylor wasn't going to, we're not going to double move. We're not going to do some go routes. He's going to keep him in front of him. And I felt like he came out this week saying, I ain't doing that. I think probably Marshawn Lattimore got in his ear, and Paulson Adebo, who had the same situation as a rookie last year, is like, that's not how you play, man. You got to get up. You got to get in their face. You got to be, man on man. You got to hit him at the line. And we saw that. We saw a lot of emotion out of him. Because, I mean, I was talking with Mickey Loomis about this on Tuesday night. And it's like, you know what? That's the only way you can play the position. You
Right.
can't play it like he played it against DeAndre Hopkins. You
Mm.
can't just hope that you don't get beat deep. You're going to get beat. You're going to get beat. You got to have a short memory, but you got to get up there and get in his face. And I
Right.
just feel like he took a big step this past week going, oh, all right, I can do this. Yeah, because you're going to get beat. It's not
Right.
like you're not going to get beat. But I mean, I was very impressed with Alontae, but getting Paulson back,
Yeah.
it just it changes everything when you got an Adebo over there and Alontae as opposed to if Paulson's not there, man. You're really searching across the line for cornerbacks,
Yeah.
and I doubt we'll see. Tomorrow probably if Lattimore starts to practice, but well, those guys, Mike Thomas and Jarvis Landry and Marshawn Lattimore haven't practiced. So
Mm.
forget talking about them playing. They haven't even practiced.
Uh,
So until they get on the field and get some reps and maybe get some limited reps, it's not even worth talking about because they're not going to play.
yeah. Well, I do want to ask you this. Them being on the sidelines is, kind of rare. Like we've seen Michael Thomas on the sidelines. I believe Lattimore was there. Do you think that's an indication that they're possibly closer to getting back than we think?
I don't know. I mean, to me, unless I can't be on the sideline, like if my injury prevents me from being like, you better be on the daggone sideline. I mean, to me, I was like, but in some cases, if it's going to be detrimental to their injury, then I'm completely. But if not, you want their expertise, especially Marshawn, dealing with, we treat Paulson Adebo like he's a 6-year guy. He's in his second year.
Right.
And Alontae, and I think that having them there, to talk to them, do this, don't do this. I don't know if it makes a difference as to whether they're going to practice tomorrow. I don't know, but I certainly want them on the sideline if it doesn't impact their injury.
Yeah. Mike, I was saying the same thing here on the State of the Saints podcast when I was talking about Michael Thomas, and I was talking about how special he is as a player. And you have a lot of these young guys, like a Rashid Shaheed that's out there, like a Chris Olave. There's something that Michael Thomas could possibly see out there to be able to give them information that they probably don't even see. And it's going to mean a lot to them because of how special he is. And we know the importance of star players bringing themselves down to that particular level to not feel like, they're above the team. We're seeing some of the issues that's happening with the Denver Broncos when it comes to Russell Wilson. So actually having a guy that with that level of experience on the sidelines rooting for the team, I really feel like that means a lot to those players, even though they may not, admit it in real time. But I think that really counts to them, as far as like this guy really truly has my back. But, Michael Thomas, he's been dealing with these injuries for the last couple of years. Dennis Allen said in a press conference that, they'll be back, he along with Jarvis Landry. The Saints going on this stretch, controlling their own destiny. How important would it be for a guy like Michael Thomas to come back and also a guy like Jarvis Landry?
Well, incredibly, only because of their skill sets.
Mm.
So the Saints and the 2-week stretch with the loss at Cincinnati and Arizona just struggled in the red zone.
Mm.
And that's where you can use a Mike Thomas. I mean, he had 3 touchdowns in his first 2 games. They were just short back shoulder throws where he's just going to outman the guy and catch the pass. And when you don't have that in the red zone, your red zone becomes a lot more challenging. Same with Jarvis Landry, kind of the big play guy. They've kind of, gotten into columns a little bit. We see Shaheed as speed. We see Olave as, a deep out first down guy, go across the middle. He'll sit in the zone and do a little bit of everything. But it's like anything else, when you got a Thomas and a Landry there, all of a sudden now Callaway's better and Traquan's better and Shaheed's better and Olave's better because you got more opportunity because now they're looking at Mike Thomas and Jarvis Landry. We went through this, look at 21. When you don't have either any Thomas or any of those guys, and all you got is a Callaway and a Hardy who had been banged up, it's a different situation. So to get those 2 back, if they do, I have no idea. Hopefully we'll learn more soon. But if you do get them back, but even if you don't, what's happened in their absences, Olave has grown to a level he never would have probably grown to had Thomas and Landry been there. I mean, what's he got? 37 catches, 2 touchdowns. So when they do come back, Olave's like, he's not a rookie anymore. Doesn't look like that to me. So he's a much more progressed player because of their absence. So when they come back, man, it's could be great.
Yeah. I think about his skill set, like at the beginning of the season, a lot of Saints fans, they probably looked at him at Ohio State. They probably fell in love with that 40 time at the combine and probably thought that he was just going to be that guy to take the top off the defense. But when you look at him, I mean, he's so fundamentally sound. Like his route running ability is incredible. It's up there with a guy that's been in the league 6 and 7 years. And I mean, he's really rose to the occasion. What he's like first among rookies in receptions and yards. So I mean, you definitely want to keep that momentum going. And it's good. It's good that he's actually here, and he's learning and developing. He can turn into something extremely special if he keeps on the path that he's going. But one thing I love, Mike, is when players change the narrative about themselves. And one player that is really rising to the occasion is Cesar Ruiz. I mean, he has been in the doghouse with a lot of Saints fans, but it seems like now the light has turned on. What are your thoughts on Cesar Ruiz and his development in his 3rd year?
Well, I think you can put a lot of people into this category, and I've talked to some coaches about it, and he did struggle, and he did take some beatings. I mean, there's nothing but first rounders basically on the front line except for McCoy,
right?
And so it was tough. He took some lumps, but what he didn't have when he got here in 2021, and what he did have this year was off seasons. Real off seasons with
good point.
Mini camp and the OTAs and all that stuff. Because of COVID, they didn't have it, so they didn't really have an off season. They were he got to camp and it was like, okay, go get him. And I think that he benefited along with a lot of other guys in the 20 and 21 season who didn't have any of that stuff. They just got thrown to the wolves. And this year it was normal. Go to camp. You had your off-season work. You had your OTAs. You had your mini camp, your rookie camp. And I think that he has benefited from that. And they've been relatively healthy. Now they lost Trevor, but Trevor was a rookie. I think that we were going to see a little James Hurst there anyway. And James Hurst has been, outstanding. Pete's been a little injured, but from McCoy over, it's the same 3 all season. Yeah, and Calvin Throckmorton's done phenomenally, filling in. So I think just kind of having the continuity there on that right side has helped, and I just think the offseason has helped. But you're right, he's, now he's pancaking people and pulling and leading on, for Taysom on QB power, stuff like that, and it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, just that whole offensive line. Cesar Ruiz to me has been the unsung hero, but last year, like you look at the offensive line, they really didn't play together that much. You had Ramczyk missed a substantial amount of time. Cesar Ruiz was the only player on the offensive line that played all the games. I mean, you had Eric McCoy that was out for a couple of weeks. So I think with the combination of his development and also the camaraderie that they have and that chemistry that they can develop being there together, I think it helps out tremendously. And it also definitely helps, like when you have Ryan Ramczyk to the right of you that could do some things. I mean, he did an incredible job going up against Max Crosby, who has 6 sacks right now. He's been pretty much dominant out there in the AFC West. But my final question for you is the game on Monday night. The Saints taking on the Baltimore Ravens. You mentioned at the beginning the Baltimore Ravens could easily be 8-0. We know that Lamar Jackson is a dynamic player. I mean, he's a walking, talking cheat code. But what do the New Orleans Saints have to do in order to knock off the Baltimore Ravens and keep this momentum going?
Just keep doing what they're doing defensively. It's going to be a different attack from Baltimore. I mean, Lamar Jackson averages 7.4 yards a run. He's already run it 75 times. So you've got to be cognizant of that first, because if in the read option the quarterback chooses right and they get some big gains, I think defensively it's tough. It gets in your head. But if you play the defense, kind of stay back, figure it out, don't get beat. keep them in front of you, and you make the right choice. I think conversely, it gets in their head, because if they are forced to throw the ball a ton, then that's not what Baltimore wants to do. You
Right.
saw what Baltimore did against Tampa in the second half. It was just run,
Mm-hmm.
and then really throw to Mark Andrews. We'll learn a lot from Baltimore's situation. Mark Andrews is a huge part of their offense.
Yeah.
And so defensively is what I really don't know what to expect from Baltimore, because you pick up Roquan Smith and you got Patrick Queen there. That is
Mm-hmm.
like unbelievable to be able to get a guy in the trade deadline who's already the NFL's leading tackler. You picked up the NFL's leading tackler at the midway point of the season,
Wow.
and that just makes them a very strong unit, which we're kind of used to with Baltimore. Their defenses
Yeah.
have always kind of been, but they're not really strong against the pass. Both teams score a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The Ravens are 5th in the NFL scoring. Saints are 7th, but both teams give up a lot too. The Saints are like 27th, and Baltimore's like 20. So it should be, if you just look at that, it should be a shootout, because both teams can score, but both teams allow scores. But man, that defense has to just play like it did last week. Just swarm into the ball.
Yeah.
Just go. Don't play to get beat. And offense, same thing. Don't beat yourself. When you win the turnover battle, they did win the turnover battle in Cincinnati and lost, which is unbelievable. But won the turnover battle and run the ball with Alvin. What they were able to do, to me, which was so impressive, was their first down in the first half and second half. Now, first down in the first half, they had 9 passes and 6 runs, 15 first down actual plays. And passes were 8.3 yards and runs were 5.3. Yeah. So you had second down and 2, second down and 5. Man, your first downs last week against the Raiders were something I've never witnessed in a long time. And if you can do that kind of damage on first down, it's very, very hard to control an offense like the Saints when you've got 2nd and 3 or 2nd and 4, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. The Baltimore Ravens are a special team. I think they have a lot of weapons. I want to say Mark Andrews. I know he was dealing with an injury. I mean, the injury reports should be coming out soon. I don't know if he'll play or not, but they do have a rookie by the name of Isaiah Likely who has been lighting it up, and he's an incredibly talented tight end. He actually
he's Coastal Carolina guys.
He's Coastal Carolina. So kind of familiar with him. But I mean, like you said, if the Saints can play as disciplined as they did last week and fly to the football and play free, they should make this game very interesting. They should be able to get that victory. But Mike, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. And I do want to say this. Growing up, I'm originally from New Orleans. I can remember being 4 years old, sitting on my grandmother's floor and watching you do sports at WWL. And you, along with the late Frank Davis and Jim Henderson, you all inspired me to take the path that I'm in right now doing broadcasting. So I do want to tell you, thank you for that. And I really do appreciate you being here on the podcast.
No problem, man. Appreciate it. And, those were great times at Channel 4. We had the luxury of working with such phenomenal people like Angela Hill and Jim and Garland. And I mean, believe me, Karen Swenson, go down the list forever and ever, Hoda Copy. So we were very blessed, and New Orleans embraced us, and, happy to hop on and talk to people in the Carolinas and Hoodats are everywhere. So anytime.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And before you go, let everybody know how they can get in touch with you.
Twitter is at Mike Hoss.com. Just Mike Hoss.com, COMM. Facebook is just Mike Hoss, or Hoss Communications is the best one. That's the business page where most of my stuff goes. There's also a personal page at Mike Hoss, but I'm not the best on Instagram. I'm trying, I'm trying. I'm getting there. But that Twitter and Facebook right now are the easiest places.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mike. We really do appreciate it. We're looking forward to hearing you, call the Saints games throughout the remainder of the season. Hopefully into the playoffs and into the season.
Let's do it. Let's do it, man. Who says that when you're 3-5? What the heck?
There's still a chance, though. There's still
That's right, baby. Hey, heck yeah. Your first goal on anybody's first at the training camp. Right. You can't win the Super Bowl. Win your division. That's always first. Now, you can be a wild card, but your first goal is win your division. Win your division.
That's the most important thing right now. But Mike, once again, thank you so much for being a part of the State of Saints podcast, and look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thanks, TJ.
All right, take care.